Why do you feel stupid for believing in yourself? Let me guess. You have these big goals, ambitions, and results that you want to hit within your life, and you might tell a few people, maybe family, maybe friends, maybe peers, and they mock you. They laugh at you and they criticize you for even having these goals in the first place. And then you start to worry, you start to question yourself, and you start to think that you're delusional. And eventually, your standards become lower and you quit. But what if I told you that the problem isn't that you are delusional, but the problem is that you aren't delusional enough? In this video, I'm going to be breaking down why delusion is your greatest superpower and how some of the most successful individuals on this planet have used that to their advantage. So what I want you guys to do is get a piece of paper, get a pen, something to write on, take some notes and leave them in the comments for the next person. But without further ado, let's do this. Okay, so the first part that I want to take you guys through is some delusional examples of famous and successful individuals who have become successful in their fields because of delusion. And these are very great examples because you can legitimately see it. And a lot of their stories have been portrayed as them being delusional, at least at the start. Everyone on this planet is delusional. It just depends whether it's in their favor or against them. I hear people that are so delusionally they have a delusional belief that they'll never be successful, yet they are trying to be successful. They're taking the physical action, but they don't see it. I don't see it within their words, the way that they speak about themselves, about the business that they're in, none of it. So what I want you to understand is that everyone is delusional, but I want you guys to be delusional in your benefit, right? So here's some examples. These are very well-known individuals. They're all delusional to some extent, at least at the start, and now they're very successful. So I'll hop on this side. One that we all know, Elon Musk. Current richest man on the planet. He was delusional to believe when he first started out that he could change the banking system, right? He could change the financial system, the whole financial, I'm looking for a different word, but you get what I'm trying to say. So he started up what's now known as PayPal. Then he went into SpaceX. He failed at the start. Pretty sure it was like 3 rocket launches failed. And there were a lot of people criticizing him on the media, saying you should stop. But he had this delusional self-belief, always, that it was going to work. In whatever he did, it was going to work. So he reinvested millions and made it work. And now everyone knows what SpaceX is, right? So that's one example that I could give you guys. Another one is Steve Jobs. Think about making Apple for the first time. For people that don't know computers and stuff, I read a biography on him. It was not like his biography, but it was a part which mentioned his story. And it ultimately said that when he first started out, his school had one of the first computers, right? I couldn't tell you the name, the brand, etc., but you get the point. One of the first computers, and he obsessed over it. While most kids were out, playing sports, doing that on their lunch breaks, whatever, he was in the IT room just learning as much as he could about code, about the computer, everything. And he became obsessed over it. And then eventually he decided, that's what I want to do. I want to create a massive brand and ultimately innovate this whole industry. I want tech to be at the forefront of the human revolution. So he was delusional to believe that that could happen. There was no such thing as an Apple, Mac, or an iPhone, right? He came up with that first. A phone that you can see stuff on, make calls, send messages, you can go on social media. Like, that wasn't a thing. You understand, you need to be delusional to see that while no one else can, right? Another one that I could give you guys is Albert Einstein. Everyone knows this guy, right? And the reason that I put him there is the law of gravity, right? It's everywhere, it's evident. You can say, oh yeah, gravity. Everyone understands that now. Back then, he was fighting with other scientists, philosophers, I don't know who else, but they were all arguing against it. There's no such thing as gravity. And he was trying to say, well, although you can't see it, it's there. If I drop this pen, this marker, it falls, right? And ultimately, he founded that upon many other things. And he was called delusional at first for it. But now he's a very well-known scientist when you look back at it. Another one that I put here is Conor McGregor. And this is a funny one because a lot of people will hear him and be like, yeah, there's mixed reviews. I'm not here to get involved. I'm just here to put him as an example. So Conor McGregor, from what I know, when he first started out, I don't know what the UK is like, I don't know what they call it, but I'm just going to call it welfare payments, I'm not too sure. But over there, he legitimately quit his job and went on welfare payments so that he could become a professional kickboxer, right? Kickboxer? MMA? I don't know. You get the point. Don't hate me for that. So ultimately, he went all in, and that takes delusion to believe that it's going to work. Now, yes, he had his wife supporting him, but that required delusion. It required delusion to believe that that was going to work. And for that, I give all of these guys credit. And everyone who is successful, the hyper-successful individuals, had delusion. The only way that you can innovate something new that isn't currently there on this physical plane of existence requires delusion, or what society calls delusion. So what I want people to understand is that most people think belief is logical, right? Oh yeah, I believe this thing to be true because I've seen it. I believe this thing to be true because those people are just the way that they are. I believe this thing to be true because that's just how it is. But it's not. And well, this is what I really want you guys to understand is belief defies logic, right? It doesn't abide by logic, it defies it. And ultimately, your beliefs shape your reality that you experience. So if you believe something to be true, your brain, your reticular activating system is going to filter out everything so that it provides you with evidence for that to be true. Our subconscious mind, right? Our subconscious mind is always trying to prove us right. It is like a loyal servant. And at the end of the day, people don't realize that. And because they don't realize it, they unconsciously sabotage themselves throughout their whole life, holding beliefs that don't serve them, and therefore their mind is always serving them though, their subconscious mind. So it's always seeking out evidence for their beliefs. But if you have beliefs that don't serve you, it's going to seek out evidence for those things as well. So what I would say to you guys is you always want to carry beliefs that serve you. Always. There's no such thing as a neutral belief. It's either supporting you or keeping you back. So you want to have as many supporting you as possible. But this was just a brief kind of introduction onto some names so that you can get the gist. Now, let's get into the gist. Okay, now in this part, I want to touch on why most people stay realistic. And ultimately, realistic is limited. And the more real you are, the more realistic you are, the more limited you are in this physical plane of existence. And I'm going to break down why. So society programs you to be realistic. And the way that it does that, or ultimately what realistic means first, is staying small. And staying small means matching your beliefs with your current reality. Well, what if I told you that your current reality is based on your past beliefs? So if you want to see something new, you need to change your beliefs entirely. Right? So what they tell you to do and what staying small ultimately means is lowering your standards to match your current reality. Because then you're almost seen, if your beliefs far exceed your current reality, people see you as cocky, right? They see you as crazy, as delusional. But that is exactly what you need to do in order to break free from your current reality. You need this level of, I don't want to say arrogance, but it almost is. Because people will see you as arrogant when your beliefs don't match your reality. They think you're crazy. They think you're stupid. But you need that in order to change. And you might hear people say stuff like, go get a stable job, right? Be realistic, go get a stable job. That's too risky, bro. Stuff like that. Or it's only 1% of people who make it, so why even try? I hear that all the time by people. And ultimately, their realities prove it from what they say and their beliefs. But why would you want to be stuck in the reality that you're trying to break free from? Why don't you want to hit the goals that you set for yourself? I think everyone on this planet should have goals. And I don't mean we all have the same definition of success. I believe that everyone should be striving for their own definition of success. Whether that's finding a loving relationship, getting in the fittest physique you possibly can, being abundant in all areas of life, starting a business, having a successful career, whatever it is, extrapolate it to every area of life. Being realistic will not help you hit your goals. And the more realistic you are, the further away from your goals you will be. So what I want you guys to understand, right, is when you base your beliefs on your current reality, you trap yourself in that reality. And ultimately, this is because your beliefs, your past beliefs have created your current reality. So if you're consistently believing what you currently believe to be true, you're only going to repeat the cycle of what's gotten you where you are today. And you're just going to be repeating that loop. You could consciously want the success. You could consciously want the loving relationship, want the career success, the business to boom, the abundance of life to come to you. But subconsciously, if you carry beliefs that don't serve you, you ain't going to see it. And that's real, right? And I said this in my last video, but I want to say it one more time, is you can't see new results as the same version of you. You can't. It's impossible. Right? In order to see things that you've never seen before, you need to be someone that you've never been before. Simply put. So, your reality is ultimately just a reflection of your past beliefs. I'm saying your current reality. So, in the past, if you believe that money is hard to come by, if you believe that business is hard, that finding a loving relationship is hard, being successful in whatever career you're in is hard, you're going to see that play out in your reality. It's going to be evident. If you believe stuff like people like me don't get successful, or, if there's no way known that someone has hit this level of success in this period of time, if you believe those things, then that's what your reality is going to be. That's why we see some people that are almost like overnight success. And we question it. And we're like, how do they do it? How did they do it? They carried beliefs that served them. And a lot of people think that success is ultimately predicted by time, but it's not. Success is predicted by your beliefs. If you believe that success is going to come in 5 years' time, that's when it'll come. But if you believe it'll come today, it'll come a lot sooner, right? And ultimately, if you only believe in what you see, you'll never see anything new. It's impossible. You'll never see anything new. If your beliefs predict your reality, you'll never see anything new. You're going to get some more. We're going to do some more now. So, next part. Okay, so the next part that I want to take you guys through is how reality programs doubt. And the reason I'm taking you guys through this is because the more aware you can become of why you aren't being delusional enough, or how society and reality programs you to be the opposite of delusional, then what happens is you're going to keep repeating these hidden loops and cycles behind the scenes, and that's ultimately what's tripping you up. So here's the loop, what I like to call the loop, and this is a negative feedback loop. You start by trying something, and this could be taking action with a new business, starting, new strategies, maybe going on dates, maybe trying to advance in your career. You start taking action, and ultimately, if it doesn't work straight away, you believe that your reality proves you're wrong. The belief in the first place that you could do it is wrong. And then you start doubting yourself. How stupid was I for having that belief in the first place? But what if I told you that that is nothing more than your spiritual ego trying to trip you up and steal you back to your old frequency? Because your old frequency has been around for a long time. Now, I mentioned this in my last video speaking about frequency, and ultimately, frequency is nothing more than what you are broadcasting moment to moment. Now, that is a version of you, and depending on the frequency that you are emitting will ultimately lead to creating the reality you want or the reality that you do not wish to see. So let's say that you feel as if, reality proves that you're wrong, right? In terms of your belief. This then leads to this second loop, which creates doubt. So here creates doubt, which leads to here. Which means when you're doubting yourself, you're not going to show up at your best. So it's ultimately, you're going to experience some failures, which lead to more half-ass effort and then more doubt. So you see how it kind of reinforces the belief that, this thing doesn't work for me. This thing doesn't work for me. Now, like I said earlier, you can't experience new results as the same version of you. That is the literal definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. If you are doing something and it doesn't work, you need to test a different variable. I don't know what you guys were like going through science class in school, but I remember when we were doing a scientific test, we had to test every single variable and write down what happened, right? The same for life. You have to test multiple variables to see what works. Now, you can't test one variable and call it a successful test. Simply put. So when you're doing one thing and for some reason it doesn't work, and the reasons that it couldn't work could be a multitude of things. Perhaps you weren't in the right frequency. Perhaps you didn't have beliefs that served you. Perhaps you showed up with half-ass effort, which led to more failure and therefore more doubt. So you see how this can be a continuous loop, which ultimately programs you to feel a level of doubt. Now, what I want you guys to do after this video is to feel as if doubt is no longer a definition that can be applied to you. You guys have to be as delusional as you want to be. And I want that for all of you guys, because the more delusional you are, the more successful you will be. You cannot limit yourself to this physical plane of existence, because there are 3 planes, right? Spiritual, mental, physical. When you limit yourself to just this physical plane, this is the illusionary plane of existence. Because all of what we experience in life is created first in the mental and spiritual planes, right? But we see the physical plane as the effect. We see this as the cause of our life, but it's not. It is nothing more than the effect of our mentalism, of the thoughts that we consistently occupy, of the beliefs that we hold, and of the delusion that we hold within our life. So this is what I want you guys to break free from. So what I want you guys to know is that people let their current reality predict their future beliefs. And ultimately what this means is, let's say that you're taking action within a business and you fail, right? You fail. Then you think beliefs, you believe things to be true that do not serve you for the future actions that you may take. You might think, business just doesn't work for me. Business is hard. Finding clients is hard. Generating leads, fulfilling the service, whatever. You then develop beliefs that do not serve you. So what happens for a lot of you guys is that you let your current reality predict your future beliefs, and that therefore predicts your future reality. So you were stuck in this continuous loop that I want you guys to break free from. So let's take this concept up here. When you fail, you ultimately embody a state of shame, embarrassment, and fear, which are the lower frequency emotions in terms of the emotional frequency chart, right? They are resonant with the lower emotions on the whole frequency chart. And what this does is these emotions end up fueling the belief that you were delusional to think that you could do it in the first place, right? But we want to then now change the definition of what delusion is and see it as a good thing rather than a bad thing. I know I've had experiences in my life where I thought I could do something, I didn't carry the right beliefs, I half-assed my effort, it failed, and then I said I was crazy for thinking I could do it in the first place. But the more aware I became of this topic, the more I realized that, wait, I wasn't delusional enough. I didn't carry the beliefs that I could do it straight from the start to then see the results externally speaking, right? So if you carry that, what you will start doing is identifying with failure, which you do not want to do. You do not want to identify yourself as a failure. You do not want to identify with failure whatsoever. Now, in my last video, the video before, I mentioned how failure or losing is just an illusion. We need to transcend that illusion of failure because ultimately you only have blessings or lessons at the end of the day. Every single failure can teach you something, and every single win is ultimately a blessing. Right? You learn more from failures than you do from blessings. So take that into consideration as well. But ultimately, what you need to know is every time you fail and you identify with the shame, embarrassment, and fear, you're going to begin fueling the belief that you're delusional and start to identify with failure. So that's what I want you guys to kind of move away from. Don't identify with it. Don't judge yourself for it. Simply observe. Ask yourself, what went wrong? What actions could I have taken? What beliefs did I hold when I was doing that? Right? And here's something else I want you guys to know. Your subconscious uses past experiences as evidence, right? I'm sure you've heard stories of successful entrepreneurs who started multiple businesses in their earlier years and they failed. So let's say, for an example, you failed 10 businesses, right? You failed 10 businesses and now you have fueled the belief that I'm no good in business. I'm no good in entrepreneurship, right? That's your belief. But what do you think that's going to do when you go and try and take another venture, when you go on another business venture? What do you think that's going to do? You're going to carry beliefs that don't serve you. And ultimately, if they don't serve you, then it's not going to work in your favor. Your subconscious and reality are one. That's what I want you guys to understand. The beliefs that you share, your perception of yourself, your self-concept, your state of consciousness, all different names and words for the same thing, they are one with reality. They are one with what you experience. And the more that you can deep that, then the more that you can understand that whatever I'm thinking, whatever I'm believing to be true, whatever I'm emotionally feeling to be true, will play out in my reality, right? So let's say that that's a bad example. Now someone else, a successful entrepreneur who failed 10, but didn't identify with this number of 10 failures. They looked at it as 10 lessons. They start the next one, and they believe to themselves, the next one is the one. They carry that belief instead. They carry a belief that serves them. The next one's the one. I've learned from all these ones, I'm going to apply it here. And they carry beliefs that serve them. So ultimately, what I want you guys to get away from this part of the video is how reality very easily can program you to be doubtful and how to completely not identify with that at all. But let's get into the next part. Okay, so the next part that I want to take you guys through is the collective attacks delusion. And what I mean by the collective is the collective consciousness of the world. Picture that above everyone, there's like a massive cloud and it's like a big brain. And ultimately, the pendulum, or let's use an easier word than that, where the majority of thoughts go towards, the majority of beliefs go towards, that is where the collective consciousness becomes apparently true. Whatever society majoritarily believes to be true will be true in reality, if that made sense. Let's retake that. So the next part that I want to take you guys through is the collective attacks delusion. Now, what I mean by collective is the collective of society, also known as the collective consciousness. We all have separate individual consciousnesses, but what we need to understand and imagine that above everyone is like a massive cloud or brain. And ultimately, what the main shareholder of society believes to be true, that collective consciousness is almost trying to drag more people in and make sure that any outliers from that of what they believe to be true and a majority scale will kind of be punished for it almost. But I'll explain that deeper in just a second. So what I want people to understand, and I'll explain it simply, and then I'll try and go a little bit deeper so that we can grasp that concept a little bit more, is people hate your confidence because it threatens their limitations. And ultimately what that means is, imagine you'll never hear hate from someone above you. It's kind of funny. I'm sure you've heard the quote where it's like, an athlete won't give you hate for trying, right? An author won't give you hate for trying to write a book. An entrepreneur won't give you hate for trying to start a business. But ultimately, it comes from the people who had these dreams and aspirations and ambitions, but never took any physical action or never saw the result externally speaking. So then it's almost like every time that you outperform them or do better than them, they feel a level of guilt. So it's got nothing to do with you. And that's what I want you guys to understand, because the more delusional you get, the more belief and conviction that you have within yourself, you're ultimately going to have more people who doubt you and will almost try and put onto you their negative limitations, because you're making them feel shit about themselves for what they couldn't achieve, right? So they'll say things like, it's not possible, but all that is because your current delusion, your current self-belief and conviction is ultimately challenging their worldview, because maybe they tried to start a business and it didn't work out for them. Maybe they tried to start a brand and scale it in a way that, was originally aligned with them, but it didn't work out for them because they didn't have the right beliefs. And then they've developed a belief that it's not possible. It's not possible. So then when you go against their belief, you're ultimately challenging their worldview. We all know the quote that it's like, oh, that person's just stuck in their ways. Ultimately, what that means is they're stuck in a belief which they've consistently reinforced for years and years on end and given it so much energy that it is almost unbreakable. Now, that's not to say that any belief can't be unbreakable, but the more set in your ways you become, so to speak, then the more strong that belief will be and the harder it will be to break, because you've invested so much emotional energy into it, right? People will project their limitations onto you. So the moment you start seeing a level of success and the moment you start becoming more delusional, and this is why I say to most people, if it isn't your physical reality yet, don't go telling people about it, right? There's a lot of success quotes online. On a surface level, they'll say things like, if you have a dream, keep it to yourself. God put it in your head for a reason, right? Do not go telling people about your vision. They will ultimately give you their limited perspective on it because it makes them feel shit about what they weren't able to achieve or what they believe to be true. So don't go telling people. Don't go telling people. Hold that vision clear in your brain, feel it every day, emotionally attached to it. Don't be obsessing over it because obsession is repulsion to the universe. But with that being said, keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. Don't allow other people's limitations to impact your mental state. Because ultimately, what will happen is that if you go telling everyone, and then you hear all of their limiting beliefs and their limiting perspectives on what you want to do, and then you start adopting some, well, what's going to happen? Ultimately, you're going to start adopting beliefs that do not serve you, and then that's going to play out in your reality, and then your vision will be kaputs. Simply put. So, what people will do is they will pull you back down because your belief makes them uncomfortable. It ultimately makes them feel small, right? It makes them feel small. And people don't want to feel shit. They don't want to feel shit. And because they're a part of the collective consciousness, anything that kind of comes up, I'm sure you guys have seen the game where it's like, you got like a little hammer. I remember playing this in Time Zone. I don't know around the world what kind of different places you guys have for arcades, but there would be like these little, what are they called? They're not moles. What are they called? They're like little animals that pop up and you would smack it with a hammer. Picture that as you. Like the moment you start rising above the status quo, the moment that you start rising above the collective consciousness of society, they'll try and smack you back down. The universe loves energetic equilibrium. And all that means is a consistent amount of energy. Consistent. And it's easy to play into that consistency when you adopt the beliefs and the limitations of the collective consciousness. But I don't want that for you guys. I want you to rise above that and hit all of your goals and hit your definition of success in life. And ultimately what that takes is not being limited by other people's perspectives, beliefs, or limitations. So something that I find funny and apparent in society is that humility is valued over conviction. You might hear people say, oh, that person's cocky. That person needs to be humbled. That person, he's too confident. He's too this, he's too that. And ultimately, the reason they say that is because they lack conviction within themselves. And because they lack conviction within themselves, the moment that they see someone who has conviction, they think that they are cocky. They think that they need to be humbled. They need a sense of humility. But to be completely honest with you, the only thing that matters is that you are in your desired frequency and on track or in your desired reality. That's it. Everything else is just noise. Whether it's family, friends, peers, whoever. That's what I want you guys to really get. Everything else is just noise. You need to rise above that and to only prioritize your frequency, your desired frequency, and your desired reality. Because ultimately, that's where all your happiness, abundance, and success lives. And the moment that you can prioritize that and stop living for others because they live within the collective consciousness, then you'll be more happier, more successful, and more abundant and free within your life. So, society ultimately wants you to act small so it doesn't make them feel like shit. Right? The collective consciousness hates outliers. I already touched on that just then. But your delusion is a threat to the status quo because it makes them, like I said, feel shit for what they thought was true. And you'll hear this concept quite often when you read biographies or listen to interviews of successful individuals. They'll say things like, yeah, everyone thought I was crazy, so I just stopped telling people my goals. I only made it physically apparent. There's a quote that I hear so much by people around me personally, and they say, I'll believe it when I see it. And they're stubborn, they're set in their ways with that. Because ultimately, if you believe something when you see it, you're never gonna see your dreams, aspirations, ambitions externally speaking, because they are first, good catch, they are first present within the mind, within the mental plane of existence. Then it is brought out through your spiritual conviction until it is brought into the physical plane of existence. So let's take that concept. And I want everyone to deep this. So I'll touch on this concept quite often within my channel. So let's say you have the spiritual plane of existence, Paul writing there, the mental plane, and the physical plane. You cannot materialize your desired reality, manifest, whatever you want to call it, build your dream life. Like they're all this different names for the same shit, really, at the end of the day, without these three in alignment. You can get some results when you work on one, but ultimately, if you do not carry the right mental and spiritual planes, the results that you experience will wither away eventually. But the moment that you can embody the state of who you want to become, to see the results you wish to see, and have that spiritual conviction, ultimately, whatever success you get will stay with you, right? So I want you guys to transcend the mental and spiritual plane of reality until what you desire is in your physical existence. Because if you only go off what is physically true, you are limited, right? This physical plane of existence is the realm of effect, not the realm of cause. Even though people think it's the realm of cause because, oh, this thing happened to me and then now I feel shit. This thing didn't go my way and now I feel shit. Without realizing, subconsciously, you have created 99% of what you experience on this physical plane of existence. Now, yes, there are some cases and some scenarios where the frequency of others can impact you, but ultimately, what you need to understand is that your frequency that you hold and what you allow to affect you will ultimately impact what you see in reality. And I remember reading a while ago now, whoever controls your emotions is your master. I made a video on this quite a while back, and what this ultimately means is if you allow someone to impact you emotionally speaking, they have control over your frequency. And when they have control over your frequency, they have control over your entire reality because it predicts the behaviors that you take, the actions that you take, the energy that you are broadcasting in your emotional state. And all of those come together as a package to form your whole entire life. That's what I want you guys to get. But yeah, let's move on to the next part. Okay, so the next part that I'm going to take you guys through is the science of beliefs creating a reality. Because I know for some people, if this is the first time you're hearing these concepts, it almost sounds too good to be true. I know the first time I heard them and I thought it was a complete load of BS. But I promise you guys, the moment that you start applying these techniques into your life, you will see a drastic change of results within your energy, within your own personal state, and within the results you experience externally speaking. So here's why beliefs create reality. So your beliefs plus your emotional state ultimately make your frequency. Now, your frequency is made up of multiple things, being your perspectives, what you consistently focus on, the beliefs you hold, your emotional state, and your conviction. Those are the main five. But with those being said, these main two, your beliefs plus your emotional state, are the biggest shareholders of your frequency, right? And your frequency, like I said earlier, is nothing more than the state that you were broadcasting moment to moment on a daily basis, okay? And ultimately, your frequency, whatever you are broadcasting, will ultimately predict the opportunities, people, and circumstances that you experience within your day-to-day life. So if you are broadcasting a frequency of wealth and abundance, you will ultimately see that within your reality. If you are broadcasting a feeling of lack, broke. If you believe you're broke, you'll experience a broke frequency. Because you're experiencing a broke frequency, your reality will prove it to you. You'll have more bills to pay. You'll have more things that come up that prove that you were broke, right? So this is what I really want you guys to deep is whatever you are broadcasting every single day will be brought back to you. And the more that you can understand that, the more aware you can become of what you are broadcasting on a day-to-day basis, then you can choose what frequency you wish to broadcast, your desired frequency, and thus hit your desired reality. Because everyone has goals. Everyone on this planet has goals of some form. They have their own definition of success. It could be career success, financial success, wealth success, business success, relationship success, extrapolated across the board, any area of life. This applies to everything, every single thing. Any result that you wish to see, this applies to it, okay? So I wrote this quote down and I heard it, can't remember where from, but you cannot be blessed with clenched fists. And I really want you guys to understand that, and I'm gonna almost do it for you guys. So imagine you're embodying a frequency of being broke, right? What do people who emit a frequency of being broke do? They hang on to everything because they don't know when they're going to get paid next. They don't know when their next dollar is going to come in. They don't know if they're going to have enough to put food on the table, to pay for bills, etc. So they almost hang on to it like this. But you cannot be blessed. You cannot be blessed by people, the universe, etc., God, if you have closed fists. And that's how these broke people act, because they're in a broke frequency, and therefore it forces them to act like a broke person. And because they act like a broke person and have those behaviors and beliefs, that's what's brought back to them. So what I want you guys to understand is the moment that you open up to blessing and embody a frequency of being blessed and abundance, that's when it'll come to you, okay? You cannot be blessed with clenched fists. Now, here's a concept, scientific neuroscience concept, which is RAS, also known as reticular activating system. Within us, we have, every single person on the planet has a reticular activating system. And ultimately what this reticular activating system does is it filters your reality to find evidence based on what you believe to be true. If you believe that all girls are bad, you're going to experience a reality that seeks evidence. So your brain's seeking evidence to prove that back to you. Because what we need to understand is your subconscious, like I mentioned earlier, is a soldier. It just listens to orders and fulfills them. So if you believe something to be true about someone, about something, about business, money, whatever, your reality is going to seek out experiences to reinforce that belief. So if you have beliefs that money's hard to come by, or that being broke is your normal, it's going to experience more. You're going to find more evidence, which reinforces the belief, and then therefore experience more of that within your reality. Now, because we have this reticular activating system within us, we need to use that to our advantage. Instead of seeking out all the bad things in life, if you can carry beliefs that serve you, like money is abundant in my life, the moment you get blessed financially, even if it's $1, $5, $10, $20, whatever, then you will experience that, and it is provided as evidence that you are abundant. And what I want you guys to understand as well is there's no such thing as size to the universe. Small, big, there's no such thing. It's either you were blessed or you were not. It's either something's happening or it's not. And the moment that you can even get even one small financial win, it is evidence that proves your reality to be true. Okay, so when you were on this journey of materializing your desired reality, what I want you guys to understand is if you use, let's say, an example of seeking abundance and wealth within your life, the moment you get blessed financially, no matter how small, it is still a win. And you need to recognize that as a win. I know in the past when I was embodying that state and I would only get paid a certain amount and it wasn't where I wanted to, I would be like, oh, yeah, it's cool, but it's not what I want. Or let's say when I was seeking to grow on Instagram, right? I would get 5 followers and I'd be like, yeah, it's cool, but it's not enough. But the moment that I started being grateful for what the universe and the God was blessing me with was the moment that that just expanded and more came in. Because ultimately, when you get blessed and then you say things like, oh, it's not what I wanted, the universe picks that up as a signal that you didn't want that altogether. So then it won't give you anymore. Make sense? So here's a little loop of what happens. So let's say that you have, let me swap this shit. Let's say that you have beliefs, right? You have a belief that money's hard to come by. Then you carry out thoughts like, oh, of course this happens to me. Of course I get charged with this bill. Of course this person's asking me for money. Of course my payment doesn't come in time. Things like that. That then bleeds into your actions. And the actions that you take on a daily basis, you're going to show up unmotivated. You're not going to give your best effort, and therefore you're not going to see results that are going to benefit you. So then that provides your brain with evidence. Your reticular activating system picks up on that evidence and reinforces the belief. And the more this belief gets kind of solidified, then the harder it is to break with time. But with that being said, it's not impossible. You could be set in your ways for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and you can still break those beliefs if you consciously and with awareness choose to do so, right? So here's another example. If you believe you'll win, what you're going to do is take bold action. You're going to take the right action, behave like that higher version of you. You're going to, do the deep work for your business. You're going to go on dates to find the right partner. You're going to show up as the version of you who has the career position that you want. You're going to show up abundantly, right? And even if you fail, even if reality doesn't go in your favor straight away, you're going to adjust and go again. So you see how that behavior is different? So it doesn't affect your belief. But someone who believes that they're going to fail right from the bat, what happens is they show up with half-ass effort. They show up not fully. It's timid action, right? Then what happens is they fail and they quit straight away. And then that reinforces their belief that it was never going to work in the first place. So what you guys need to do is transcend the illusions of your current beliefs in order to build new ones. So here's a little checklist of what delusional belief will do for you guys when you embody this state. Delusional belief will ultimately bypass logic and past evidence. Any evidence that you've experienced in the past, anything that your brain goes, well, it's not logical for me to think that I'm going to be successful if I've never been successful in the past. We have all experienced some moment where we've been successful. The problem is you're not linking it to that. For example, you could say, what's a personal example I could give you guys? I used to play soccer, right? Football, depending on where you are in the world. So I was pretty good at it. I wasn't the best at it, but I was pretty good at it. I wanted to do professional soccer for a while, right? So there's a personal goal, I can tell you guys. But I didn't carry the right energetic beliefs and mindset behind myself in order to find success in it. I was doing all the work. I was training by myself, waking up at ridiculous hours, training before school, after school, going to the gym, everything. I was taking all the right action, but I wasn't in the right mental plane. So when it came to game day, I would freeze. I would stuff up, all of these things, right? But then what happened was, as I started to grow, and as I started to go on this journey of entrepreneurship and content and everything, right? Ultimately, what happened was I started seeking evidence in my past that proved that I was successful. Even if it was one successful game or maybe a time when I did a public speech and I did really good at it. Any evidence that you have that proves that you were a successful individual. Remember, there's no such thing as small or big. So what you need to do is replay those events within your head. How did it make you feel? Because ultimately, if you had a success, externally speaking, and everyone has, maybe it was the first time you tied your shoes for the first time when you were a kid. I remember how gassed I was when I first tied my shoes. I felt like I could do anything, right? Just find evidence where you felt completely aligned and in tune with success, with that higher version of you, and replay that in your head, replay the emotional state. And that's how you embody that success frequency, because you do have evidence. We all do. It may be so small, but you need to cling on to that notion and really replay it so that you can embody that state, right? So when you have delusional self-belief, you're going to bypass logic and past evidence and experiences that proves you are a failure or that you aren't who you want to be, right? You're going to bypass all that. And then your subconscious is going to accept your new identity before reality proves it. And that's important because once your subconscious mind accepts it, reality has no choice but to catch up. It has no choice. That's what I want you guys to understand. It goes mental and spiritual plane first, physical plane of existence last. Take the right mental and spiritual action, get in the right states every single day, right? And then the physical action will catch up. The physical reality will catch up to what you were consistently broadcasting, right? And the next part, I'm going to teach you guys how you can do that. Okay, so I know I told you guys I was going to go into the solution, but as I started, I was like, wait, there's one more part that I want to take you guys through before we get there, which is reframing delusion. Because I already know that there's going to be people who message me or comment and they're going to say, well, yeah, no, I still don't get what you're saying, or no, I don't agree with it, whatever the case is. So I'm going to stop that right there and ultimately give you guys an even deeper perspective of what delusion really is. So I'm going to tell you what delusion is not. Delusion is not ignoring reality. It is choosing a better one. Because ultimately, if you aren't in the reality that you wish to experience right now, it takes delusion to get you there. It takes conviction, that internal state of belief, to get you to your desired one. Okay? So ultimately, if delusion was to be given a definition in this context, it would be holding a vision so strongly that no external circumstances can shake it, believing something to be so true that it doesn't matter what happens externally speaking, it doesn't matter who says what to you, what happens throughout your day, any negative things that happen, you still believe so strongly. You don't even feel any fear, doubt, or worry whether it's going to work, because you know. It's different to hope. You don't hope it's going to work out. You know it's going to work. That's the difference, okay? So I've put down a little bit of a contrast. Let's use green. I feel like we haven't used green this whole video. So this is a contrast of denial versus delusion. So denial compared to delusion. Delusion is not denial. I want to break these both down. So denial in this context is ignoring your problems and not taking any action, saying, this is just how reality is. These things happen to me, but I'm not going to change it. I hear that shit all the time and it pisses me off. Genuinely. I hear so many people complaining about their lives, yet they take no physical action and no mental action to change it. And that is ultimately you predicting your own reality. So why are you complaining about it? Right? That's not what I want you guys to do. What I want you guys to understand is delusion is having conviction in the reality that you wish to experience and taking action towards it. Also known as quantum shifting or quantum leaping. I'm sure you've heard of that before online. Quantum leaping is ultimately embodying a state of or version of you where you have everything you desire and reality catches up. And that's exactly what we're doing here, right? So I got some examples up here of Ronaldo and Kobe, because these are two very well-known athletes. Very, very well known. But both of them had such unshakable conviction that they were going to be the best player in their sport way before they ever were. I remember hearing stories of Ronaldo when he was like 13, before he'd ever made it into a professional club, saying, I'm going to be the best player in the world, right? And that led him to there because he had that unshakable conviction and confidence. Yes, he said it out loud. People probably laughed at him, doubted him, mocked him, whatever the case is, but he had unshakable confidence and conviction that that was going to be his reality, that his desired frequency was that he was the best player in the world. And he embodied that every day with his actions that he took, with the way that he bounced back to external experiences, everything. And the same for Kobe, ultimately. He said that before he'd ever made it into, I'm pretty sure when he was in school, I recall an interview, I read his book, The Mamba Mentality as well. He always knew he was going to be the best at what he did. Always. Always. And I remember Ronaldo telling his son, can't remember why I watched this, I don't care what you do as long as you're the best in it, right? He's almost giving them that frequency to embody that state. Now, they probably don't know about quantum shifting and all that stuff. But with that being said, this is why it worked for them. And that's what I want you guys to really understand. So I want you to reframe delusion, because even the word delusion, if you've consistently connected it with appearing crazy, then you're going to want to like almost subconsciously stray away from it. Even though you've understood this whole video and the concepts that I've been breaking down, you're going to almost move away from it and not identify with that concept. So another way that you can look at delusion is unshakable conviction within the goals and reality that you have. When you have unshakable conviction that what you wish to materialize is already yours, it will become so with time. Okay? So what I want you guys to stop doing is stop looking for evidence. Instead, I want you guys to be the evidence. And what I mean by that is start embodying that version of you every single day. Now I'm going to get into the solution part and how you can actually do this. But ultimately, to sum it up briefly, before I get into the deeper part of it, you want to choose your desired reality, right? Choose what you want your reality to look like. How much money do you want to be making? What type of person do you want to be? Do you want to be fit, healthy? What type of love relationship do you want? What type of relationship with people around you do you want? What type of business do you want to have? All of these things. What type of career do you want to have? All of them. I want you to get so detailed with it, because the more detailed with it you become, the more that you can embody that version of you and therefore make it so and present within your reality. Now, let's get into the solution part. Okay, so in this part, I'm going to take you guys through how to build unshakable delusion or unshakable conviction within yourself and your vision that you want to experience within this life. And so throughout the video, I've broken down and touched on how the collective consciousness and society kind of transpires against the delusional people, but why they ultimately succeed in the long run. So now I'm going to give you guys the actual solution of how you can become as delusional as possible and build this unshakable conviction so that you can materialize the reality that you wish to see. So the first part is, but before I go, I know this looks a bit scary, but I'm going to break it down nice and easy for everyone. So the first part is decide who you are. Right? Not what society tells you, not who society tells you are, not what society tells you you should do, but who you genuinely want to be. What version of you do you want to be? What results do you want to see? That's who you need to decide you are at the start. But what I want you guys to not do is do not say things like, I will be successful. I will find a loving relationship. My business will take off eventually. Because although we think we're doing right by saying those affirmations, that's ultimately what it is, affirming a belief, we are almost postponing it into the future. And what we need to realize is time is ultimately an illusion that is only constrained upon the physical plane of existence. But the moment that we embody with that, we are putting those constraints on our mental and spiritual plane as well. So we need to say things like, I am successful, I am abundant, I am wealthy, I am loved, I have a successful business. All of these things, you need to speak as if they are present right now. Otherwise, if you keep postponing it, you're never going to see it in your present reality, right? So you need to embody the I am. And ultimately what the I am means is what I just said. You need to embody every single time you say an affirmation or affirm a belief, it needs to be in the current tense. You want to say, I am successful, I am wealthy, I am abundant, I have the amount of followers I want, I have the success that I wish to see. Embody that now, okay? And ultimately, why I say that is because it bleeds into your actions. Because if you are saying, I will be successful, you will put off your actions and say, yeah, I will be successful one day. And then you're going to put off the actions that it will take to be successful in whatever field you're in for a later date. But when you say, I am successful right now, you're going to show up as that version of you. And when you show up as that version of you, you're going to get those results a lot sooner, right? So that's step one. Decide who you are and embody that. The second part is cut off external validation. And the reason that I say this, and I see this with a lot of people, is we're always seeking validation from someone. Whether it be friends, family, people within our community, we're always seeking praise, appraisal from someone, acceptance. But the moment that you can transcend that and accept and validate yourself, you never need it externally speaking. And that's when you become the most powerful version of yourself, right? You're not seeking anyone else's validation, right? I went from, I think it was like 100, 150 followers to like 10K followers in the span of a couple weeks on Instagram, which was crazy for me at the time. Like I embodied the state of I had 10K followers. I was telling myself that every single day. But the moment that I cut off the external validation of people potentially messaging me saying, yeah, you know what, you'd like me seeking that appraisal, that's when everything skyrocketed. And that's what I want you guys to do, is cut off that external validation and stop asking for permission for people. You know what you need to do, and you know who you want to become, and you know what you want to hit. So stop asking other people for permission. There's been times in the past of my own life where I knew what the right action was. I knew what the version of me that was going to hit those actions looked like, but I was waiting for permission from someone else, whether that be my family, whether that be my friends, whether it be mentors in the past. And I would ultimately ask them questions that I already knew the answer to. And the moment that you can give yourself the permission to be who you want to be, that's when life starts going for you. So I want you to internally validate yourself, so much so that you do not need it externally speaking. No matter whether someone praises you or gives you hate, it doesn't impact you, right? And ultimately, those two are polarities. So you can't have one without the other. Even myself, I have people who send me hate comments, who send me like pretty harsh DMs, but I don't care. To be completely honest with you, I don't give a fuck, because it's all the same, good and bad. It is all the same, realistically speaking. Okay, so remove that external validation altogether, right? The third step that I want to take you guys through is act as if. So now you know who you want to be. You know that there's a version of you that's showing up to the plate as the highest version of you, and they're doing all the right action, but more importantly, they're being that higher version of you. They're embodying a state where you feel emotionally aligned with the things that you're working towards. You feel emotionally aligned in life. Your emotional state is serving you. You feel higher frequency emotions of love, almost enlightenment, joy, acceptance, passion, all those things. So what I want you guys to do so that you can understand yourselves and this deeper is get something that you can write down, like a piece of paper and a pen, and ask yourself, how would the version of you who had it all behave, feel, think, and tolerate? And what I mean by that, I'll break each one down. How would the version of you behave who had it all? That higher version of you who has the business success, who has the success within, the athletic performances, or within the career, or within the relationships. How would that person behave? How would she or he behave? Would they show up to the plate with confidence and conviction? Would they show up with a state of content and calm, knowing that everything's working for them? 100% they would, right? How would they feel? How would they feel? They would feel that, actually I did it back to front. Sorry, how would they behave? They would show up as the highest version of them. They would take all the right physical action. How would they feel? Content, calm, love, abundance. How would they think? They would think positive thoughts that serve them. They wouldn't think, oh, is this going to work? I'm not too sure, because that's doubt, right? They would have that internal conviction, and they would carry beliefs and thoughts that serve them, Because all a belief is a thought plus an emotional charge. That's a belief. So they would carry thoughts with emotional charge that support them. They know that they are successful already. They feel content. Like imagine that you're trying to hit a monetary figure, right? A monetary goal. Financial goal, right? And ultimately, imagine if that was complete. Imagine if you were the goal of becoming a millionaire and you were sitting there on a nice bougie little place and you hit it. How would you feel? That's the type of stuff I'm talking about. And what would you tolerate? That higher version of you that's crushing all your goals, what would they tolerate? Because sometimes what happens is we don't see ourselves as this higher version of us, so we tolerate less. We tolerate people giving us shit. We tolerate negative beliefs and other people consistently impacting our lives. And the moment that you can embody that higher version of you and choose what you tolerate, everything begins to change. So that's one of the most important ones out of this whole thing is act as if. That's what you want to do every single day. And I'll touch on how you can do that. But the next part, step 4, is protect your belief at all costs or your frequency. Protect it at all costs. Be cutthroat with it, like your life depends on it. Because ultimately, it does. Your reality depends on it. And ultimately, what I want you guys to do is limit exposure to doubters. Stay out of the mix and in the frequency. And I know some people are going to say, but what happens if the doubters are closer to home? Well, then ultimately what I would do is I would tell you to maybe keep your goals more personal. Keep them close to you. If you know people that are pessimistic, don't go telling them your goals because you know what you're going to experience. Don't go asking them for permission because you know what they're going to say back to you. They're going to give you their limited perspectives because they are part of the conscious collectiveness, the collective consciousness. But yeah, you get the point. So you ultimately have to control all your inputs. And by inputs, I don't just mean actions. I mean, be careful, be selective with what you see, even in social media. And this is a funny notion that I've learned recently within my life. The more that we watch social media, and whether it be movies, whether it be the news, whether it be, random memes and posts, we're almost opening up our worldviews to experience what we're consistently watching, right? Like, why would you watch something that you don't want to consistently see within your reality? Because there's a lot of bad shit out there, but it doesn't mean that you need to identify with it. Okay, so control your inputs, control what you listen to, what type of music do you listen to, what are the lyrics behind it, what is the frequency within the song, obviously you don't need to go too crazy with this, but you get what I'm trying to say. Control your inputs, be very selective with them, and reinforce your belief daily. And ways that you can do this is visualization, so visualizing the result that you wish to see, affirmations, but this is important. Affirmations, visualizations, all of these things need one thing, which I will touch on in a second. And the last one, there's thousands of techniques, to be completely honest with you. Not thousands, hundreds. There's hundreds of techniques you could use, really. And there's no right or wrong technique. There's no one size fits all. Ultimately, the technique that will work for you is the one that you have the most conviction in. You could do visualization. If you have no conviction in it working, it won't work. You could do affirmations, vision boards. What's the one? Script writing, right? All of it. You could do all of it. But if you don't have conviction in it, it won't work. And if you don't have conviction in yourself, none of them will work either. So conviction is very important. And the way that you can build conviction, this is a little bonus part, is just do everything you say and say everything that you do, right? Keep the promises to yourself. Imagine that we have a mental scoreboard that your subconscious mind is consistently ticking off. Every single time you say you're going to do something and you do it, every single time you say you're going to do something and you don't do it. Now, the more ticks you have in your favor, the more conviction that you're going to have, which is like fuel, which we can use to reinforce our beliefs every single day. So here's a couple of examples. Now, with every single one of them, you have to link a level of emotion. You can't just say affirmations in a mirror and not feel anything and expect yourself to embody that state of you, because you won't. The emotion is the most important part. Emotion plus conviction. That is the most important part that will make any of these actually happen and bring about the results that you wish to see. So when you're visualizing a scene, make it easy, make it simple, replay it multiple times. Maybe someone's in there that you're really connected with and you value their feedback, and they give you a positive comment and it makes you feel a certain way, right? Can you evoke that emotion? With the affirmations, can you evoke the emotions? If you're sitting there saying I am successful, I am abundant, I am wealthy, I have this, that, can you feel that when you say it? Or the vision board, when you're looking at your vision board, can you feel those things as true? Because the more emotion, which is the language of the subconscious mind, the more emotion that you can embody, then the more it will be imprinted within your subconscious mind and therefore be brought into reality. Now, these last two are important to note, right? Important to note. These two are the most important, I would say. 3 and 4, act as if and protect your belief at all costs. But number 5, interpret failure differently. So when failure arises, which it most inevitably will arise, failure is a concept which no one can outrun. It's funny because I hear people say things like, yeah, you know, I was thinking of going to start a business, but it's too hard. Yet they settle for a job where it's hard regardless. It just depends on which type of hard you choose. Life happens, right? Failure is inevitable, but how you react to it is up to you, right? So what I want you guys to do is interpret failure differently. Don't see failure as something bad. Instead, see failure as feedback and don't identify with it. If something bad happens, you didn't see the result you want, maybe a bill came in, something bad happens, do not see it as evidence that proves that you aren't who you say you want to be. Only observe it, ask yourself, what am I going to learn from it? But don't quit. And that's why I put here, don't quit, just adjust. Adjust. But observe it, but remove all judgment from it, right? The last one that I want to touch on is expect synchronicities. So when you start embodying this version of you, this state of you that is who you say you want to be and is moving toward your desired reality, what's going to happen is you're going to have what is also known as synchronicities, which I find quite funny because I believed in synchronicities quite heavily, but I believed in synchronicities being signals, right? And for example, there was once upon a time when I believed in, I don't know if you would call them angel numbers, but I always saw them as synchronicity numbers. 444 came up everywhere for me, 444. And I was like, oh, the universe is trying to tell me something. But I have linked my belief that I would always see 444. And then now whenever I go on the phone randomly, 444. Whenever I walk past like a kitchen timer, 444. When I pause a YouTube video, 444, because I believe that to be true, right? So what I want you guys to understand is when you believe something deeply, reality starts conspiring for you in your benefit. So the moment that you start believing that you are who you say you are, the moment that you start believing that you have the results that you want, reality starts conspiring for you. And the way that it does that is it's going to bring you opportunities, people, and resources, and they will all show up within your life. But what I want you guys to know, because we don't want to get confused here, and this will build conviction when you know this, it's not luck. When that shit shows up, it isn't luck. Don't look at that and be like, wow, I'm lucky. No. What I want you guys to understand is it's your frequency that brought that on. And the more aware you become of that, the more aware that you are in control of your whole entire life. Your whole life. 99% of it, you're in control of it. And that almost brings like goosebumps to some people when they experience that and be like, wow, I brought that into my life, right? So that's what I want you guys to take away from this video. Ultimately, if the biggest thing you could take away from this video is start embodying the version of you who you want to be and protect your beliefs at all costs because your life does depend on it. Your reality depends on it. So yeah, no, you didn't fail because you were delusional. Ultimately, you failed in the past because you were too realistic. And the moment that you can transcend that and become as delusional as possible, will the results start showing up in your life. You need to be like those big names that I listed up earlier. Einstein, McGregor, Kobe, Ronaldo, all those people had such delusional belief before it ever became physically present within the reality. You guys need to adopt that as well for whatever definition of success that you have. Okay? So I hope you found this video valuable. Leave your notes in the comments and I'll see you in the next one.